Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Jody and the channel is JI Colorist. I'm so happy to have you here today as we continue on with our watercolor series using a page from Johanna Basford's World of Flowers, and today we're going to be using Arteza's watercolor brush pens. So they look like this. I have the 96 set and let's get started. If you've been following the series, then you know we're working on this page here, and we are doing a different watercolor medium in each of the sections on the page, and the page has already been pre-treated with Daniel Smith's Transparent Watercolor, so it's ready to take our watercolor and we're ready to get started. I'll move the camera down closer and we'll begin. So today I have already picked out some colors and I'm going to show you all the materials that we're going to use. So I'm using a plate as a palette. It's a white ceramic plate from the thrift store, some paintbrushes, a blotting paper towel, a water brush just in case we need it, some water, and I've already selected the colors. Now I wanted to show you that these watercolor brush pens are a little bit different than the Zig Clean colors, which is the ones we covered in the first section that we colored this area with here, with the Zig Clean ones. The Arteza ones have a larger brush tip. So you'll notice, in fact, I'll get out a Zig. So it's quite the difference. They are both nylon bristles. However, the Zig ones seem to flow really well on the paper. So like we didn't have problems moving them at all on the paper. Whereas the Arteza ones, I'll show you, if you put them on there and then you try and bring on water right away, it doesn't move. And this is watercolor paper. So although they call themselves watercolor brush pens, I have not had great luck moving them on its own. So in order to get the most out of these, it's much easier to simply put some of the paint from the watercolor brush pen directly onto your palette, and then you can pick it up. Just move the palette out of the way a bit. With a damp brush, I can pick that up, and then I'm able to move the paint around. So that you can use these, it's just that we're not going to be using them the same way I was able to use the Zig, which is great, but it's something that you have to know ahead of time, and it took me a little bit of practice to figure out what worked best for this medium. So that's how we're going to use them today. We're going to use a palette and then pick up the paint from the palette onto our paper. We're going to do the background first today. So let me just get set up here. I've selected some colors. I'm going to do a teal kind of background up here. So I've done blue and teal kind of throughout this this page, and we're doing that to keep the whole page cohesive. So I've got two colors. I've got teal green A127. These do have, sorry, it's turtle green. And the second one is just called TA138. So these brush pens do have both names and numbers on them. So I'm going to clean off my palette. Got a little spray bottle here that I'm just going to clean the palette off with so we can start fresh. So for the first little bit, I will put the palette here so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to take the lighter teal and just put some paint down. I'm going to take a damp paintbrush, knocking off most of the water, and I'm just adding a bit of water to it, getting some paint on the paintbrush, and then I'm going to come in and simply add that paint, trying not to get the flowers because they are not going to be green colored. Okay, I just zoomed you in a little bit so you can see how we're doing. And this is all still from that one initial dip into the paint. Okay, and a little bit more. And if I need a bit of water, I can always just spray some water onto the palette, and I'll get a little bit of a lighter color that way. So I hope everybody's doing great. I hope you're enjoying July, World Watercolor Month. I hope you're playing with your watercolor mediums in your coloring books or on your sketchbooks. Something to have fun with in the summertime. This has been a fun series for me to do, so I hope it's fun seeing this page come together, and hopefully it turns out great. If not, at least we'll have had some fun playing with mediums that we'd sometimes miss out on. So I'm just picking up. So your watercolor brush pens, keep the caps on them tight. You don't want them to dry out. I keep mine in the case that it came in from Arteza. So it's a great case. And I haven't had any kind of run out. So, okay. Well, this area here is a little bit lighter than I would like, so I'm just trying to lighten it up a bit, but if that's not possible, then that's okay, because we're gonna darken up other areas. So okay, while that's still a little bit wet, I'm going to grab the darker green, which is Turtle Green 127, and I can show you what it would look like if I did it direct. So I'm just gonna come into the corner and attach it right to the paper. And with a damp brush. Now the paper was already wet, so it is moving a bit, so that's awesome. I just want a darker edge along, and then we'll lightly and then I'm going to come back with my lighter color and blend it in a bit. So we're kind of merging those two colors together. I'm going for darker corners, and I can pick up a bit of the dark with that, and just also bring it in instead of using just using it off the palette. I find I have better control with the paintbrush, so sometimes I skip the direct method and just stick with what is working. But you are definitely encouraged to experiment with your tools, your mediums, and find out what works best for you. Sometimes I'll grab a picture that I'm, not really enamored with, or a book that I'm using kind of as a test area, and I'll play with mediums there. I'm going to switch you a bit. I'm just got a piece of white paper underneath. Just used to having that underneath, so blend this out. Rinse my brush off. Just bring in a bit of just clean water. So it's summer here in Canada, and our garden is just growing. We've had crazy amounts of rain recently here, and things are just growing like a weed. It's wonderful. Okay. This is how it's looking so far. We'll let that dry and see what the final colors are, and then I'll probably come in and deepen up some areas, but we can always come back and do that. And so the next things we're going to do are the small flowers, and I'm going to do them like a daisy. So I'm going to have a yellow, which is acid yellow, A151, and then a brown, which is chocolate, A102. And I will, because there's such a small area, and I'll make sure that these areas are dry. And I will do one direct and show you how that looks. And then if it's such a small area, if you want it to be solid, like a deep color, then direct onto the paper. Find small areas work well. So we'll do this center one together, and then I'll turn the camera off and continue on. This is pretty easy, this part. Okay. And actually, we're going to let those flower areas dry a bit. I'm going to come in with the green for the leaves, and it's got a light green, A111. And if you notice that it looks a little bit wide and frayed, if that happens to your brush, just take it and roll it and get it back into a nice point using your palette. So now we have a nice point again. Okay, in tiny, tiny areas. And this is why I selected the brush pens for these ones, because the lines, the stems here are so tiny. It's much easier to use a brush pen than a paintbrush or a colored pencil. Okay, and those little ball things I'm going to leave alone, because I'm going to probably come and use some kind of sparkly. Okay, simple and easy. I'll shut the camera off here for a minute and I'll continue with the other two, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and I've completed all three of the flowers with the green, brown, and yellow. And now we're going to do these little, I'm not sure what this is, but we're going to make them 3 colors, and I've selected Punch Pink A195 as the red, Honey A121, and Acid Yellow 151. So we have already used the yellow here, so I'm using that color again, and I'm going to be scribbling all 3 onto my palette and working from there. So I'll apply some to the palette. Okay, and I'm going to switch to a tiny brush, make sure it's clean, and blot it off. Okay, and I'm going to take some yellow, zoom you in a little bit more, there we go. Going to bring the yellow in. And if there was some blue already on the petal, I'm pushing the blue out. So now we've got some yellow. And now I'm going to take the orange and I'm going to blend that in. And I'm going to take the red and the red's just at the base. Rinse my brush off. I'm going to bring in more yellow, and I'm just going to kind of merge all of them together. Working out any harsh lines with the brush. And there we go, we'll leave that to dry. And I'm going to flip this page upside down so we can do the top 2. So do one more together and then I'll stop the camera and do the other ones. So if you don't want to use the yellow to push this green area off, you can try and lift it ahead of time just by gently rubbing that area and then using a dry tissue to blot it off. So there we go. And this one I can show you. We can start with the yellow. If we want the yellow to be a little stronger than it came from the palette, you can bring the yellow directly onto the paper. When it's a small area, the brushes seem to work okay. It's when you have a larger area, they don't really move well, so smaller areas seem to be fine. Adding the orange layer, a bit more orange. And some red. Okay, rinse off my brush. Oh, sorry, I banged the camera with my... Blend them together. If I think we're missing something, if you want to blend instead with the straight yellow, always working from the lightest area down. Okay, and I think I want to touch more red on the bottom. Just deepen that up a little bit. Just with a clean brush, just blend that transition line a little bit. There we go. Okay, I'll continue on and do this one, and I'll be right back. Okay, for the last item on this panel that we have to do are these little corner items. So using colors that I've already used in this panel, I'm going to do yellow with a bit of the brown in the corner, so it'll blend. So I'm going to apply the yellow direct, full strength, and then from the palette, I'm going to put some brown. And using a clean paintbrush, pick some up. Okay, so put that in the corner. Get some water on my brush, clean it off. And just fade that in. There we go. Okay, we'll do that up top one more time. This time I'll start with the dark brown. Okay, there's no... Okay, and now I'm going to take the yellow and from the tip, bring it up. And then we'll see which one I like better. Okay, it was easier to control this one better, so we'll have to okay. Okay, there we go. We'll zoom out. So here's how it's looking right now, and I will finish these two on my own, but that's it for today's. That was the Arteza Watercolor brush, the real brush pens, and we have two more sessions. We've got this little area and we've got this big butterfly. So Stay tuned, and I hope you're having a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week with the next video. Thank you for watching, and if you've already subscribed, thank you for subscribing, and if you haven't, I hope you plan to do so today. Thank you. Bye-bye.